Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the CashFlowDiary podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other CashFlowDiary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the CashFlowDiary podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you are here today because right now, as you go through the world, you wake up each day, you've got a routine, and you're looking for a way to navigate it. Maybe your business is, well, one of the few that is doing exceptionally well right now because who knows? What you have, what you do is in demand. Maybe you're in a situation in which the business that you were hoping to build is probably on a pause. That is also there. But you know what? Regardless of which end of that spectrum you're on, there's one thing that I know for a fact you should be doing. And in fact, the person that I have with me today agrees. She would say that you should double down on certain activities because this is the time to go. Many of us are in a position in which the people that we serve are hoping to find us. They're looking. They need us to stand up. They need us to lead. But maybe you have a challenge because there is news, there's podcasts, there's YouTube, and in fact, there's Twitter. There's all kinds of ways to get messages out, and yet you are having trouble because no one can hear you. You're just looking for a way to rise above the noise. You're looking for a way to make sure that your voice is heard, that your message is clear, and most importantly, that people take action because you know if they just knew, you could help. I have with me today none other than Jacqueline Nagle. Now, many of you may know her from the Speakable You intensives, but what's exciting to me is that she, like many other entrepreneurs, are standing up, standing out, stepping up to serve you and I so that we remember not only why we started, who we're there to serve, but most importantly, that now is the time to push forward and not shrink back. So here's what we're going to do. I know you're probably walking the dog, or maybe you're using that treadmill that's been in the garage forever now, and you're listening. So get ready to hit that pause button, that taking notes button, that bookmark button, because I know you're about to learn something that's going to help you move your business forward. So let's get ready to listen, learn, and love Jacqueline Nagle. Jacqueline, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, actually. To be very honest with me, we've got a very busy world out there right now, but I'm doing in this moment. It's fantastic.
I love it. I love it. Now, this being the first time that you're here, I have to ask you the same question I tend to ask everybody else the first time that they're here. You ready?
Absolutely.
Got it. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes. You know, Wonder Woman, Black Widow, Batman, Robin, etc. You get the idea. Because I think that entrepreneurs and superheroes have a ton of things in common. Because as an entrepreneur, I can envision myself flying around town and saving our customers one sale at a time. But just like a superhero, an entrepreneur has a beginning. So if you think about Spider-Man for a moment, there was a time where he was just a kid going to school, doing his thing, taking photos, trying to earn some pizza money, take a girl on a date. Very normal. Then one day he gets bit by a spider, discovers he's got a superhuman ability, and he has to choose whether to use it for good or for evil. So my question to you is as follows. Before you being able to, build a very successful consulting practice over in Australia in less than 18 months, 800 grand, that's a lot. That means you know what you're doing. Before being able to deliver more than 180 workshops that have spanned 15 topic areas, before, well, honestly, everything that we already know you for. What we want to know is, who is Jacqueline Nagle?
Ooh, that's a big question. Who is Jacqueline Nagle? So I am a girl that, like everybody, actually had a plan for her life as a teenager. And that was actually to become a lawyer.
Okay.
Yeah, go to university, to actually come to the US and do my master's at Harvard and go to New York and work in the district attorney's office as a young girl from country Australia. That was actually my dream. And life happens. And so I actually didn't follow any of that pathway. And in actual point, by my early 20s, was just an average worker working at places like McDonald's, got my first office job. And so just very middle of the road. What changed for that was I had a set of circumstances when I was in my early 20s. I moved to Melbourne in Australia and I fell into a job in recruitment. And that was a job that I loved. So I had moved to the city. I knew one person. I got a temp job working in a recruitment firm, and it was supposed to be for 6 weeks. And I stayed with that career for about 16 years.
It's a long 6 weeks. I like it.
It's a long 6 weeks. So, right now we're thinking time slowing down. It really, 6 weeks into 16 years, that's a slowdown of time. But what I loved about that job was it was something that was complex enough to get my attention. I remembered that I had a brain. And I was in and out of that industry for a long time. And a lot of my success is based on what I learned early in that career. So it got my attention enough that I was curious, I was interested, I was intrigued. And being in a recruitment company that dealt with some of the best businesses in Australia, I was exposed to my own MBA through our clients. So I was exposed to all of these different ways of operating and all these different ways. And it was also, my first mentor was one of the directors of that business. He's one of Australia's entrepreneurial icons. And he made it very clear that the greatest way to build anything was to be insatiably curious about it. It was all about understanding every element, every aspect, and then taking a step back and working out what you could do to assist, to make this work and to get the right people at the right time at the right place. And so it was that fostering this insatiable curiosity. And he also mentored through storytelling. So when we had every Friday afternoon, I love this story. Every Friday afternoon, if you've been in the business less than 12 months, no matter where you came from before, and, we had people who were treasurer of Lloyd's of London and things like that. So wherever you had come from, your first 12 months in that business, every Friday afternoon, you still had to attend what was called Rookie Creche. And that was a kindergarten, preschool type program. So it was like every Friday afternoon. And Andrew Banks, who was the person I was just talking about, would host that. And it was always there was about 200 or 300 of us in the Melbourne office. So there's about usually 40 or 50 rookies in the room. So rookie meant first year. And he would say, I don't want to know your successes. I see that in the reports. I see that in the numbers. Like, all the successes are there, and you should be celebrating those every day within your teams. What I want to know is, what have you mucked up? What mistakes have you made? What do you not understand? What took you by surprise? Where did you trip that you didn't expect it? And as these things would come out, and it was, 20 years ago, so you get met at the door with a butler and your favourite drink for the afternoon. It's a little bit different to how a lot of us operate now. Yeah. And so you would relax, and then he would actually, instead of telling you, he would then share an experience from his career that would give you the answer you were looking for, or the keys to know where to start to look. So and because of his attitude and his lead with that, all of our senior leadership team also did that. So if something came up where we had got something wrong, or we were challenged, or we didn't know the next step, they would draw out of us how we were feeling and what we were thinking, and then they would answer through story. So that is actually where it changed.
Love it. I love it. Now, something you said, literally right at the beginning, you said, I had a plan. I like that, because it recognizes the fact that, well, there was something that I thought was going to happen, but that didn't happen. And I've gotten to a place to which that's okay. So there's probably a number of entrepreneurs who are feeling that same way, or in some part going through the fact of, but this is my plan. This is what I was wanting to do. I was going to go this way, but now it feels like I have to turn or do something that maybe I don't necessarily want to do, have to do. So I'm curious, because you had a plan and then you mentioned McDonald's and other jobs. What was that like for you? And how did you get to a point of, we'll call it resolution with it at the point?
So part of it is, and if I can just go back to what you said, that statement that you made, that I had a plan. I was going to go this way. And one of the things I'm working with all of my private clients with at the moment is the things still exist. The thing that you want that still exists, you have to actually have some flexibility here. Just because the plan is gone doesn't mean the thing is gone. And that's what we have to really keep in mind at the moment. So I will be honest, it took me a long time to let go of the fact that that plan had gone. I kept circling back. Should I go and redo this? But what I did was I found a space where I didn't realize, but I found a space where I could bring all those skills. So within recruitment, I built up a great reputation in that. I built up a very big skill base in that. But where I really excelled was in contracts, in negotiation, in winning work, getting the deal. And then the skills that I learned from being a general manager of a recruitment business meant that I became really skilled in industrial relations, which is employment relations and employment law and things like that. So without realizing it, I ended up in a space where I was actually operating almost like a lawyer. In actual point of fact, a lot of the time I would get to a stage where I had to hand it to a lawyer for the legal system to be annoyed because they knew less than me. So it came out in a different way. It took me a long time to recognize that. So it's actually the skills that I would have used on that pathway were still the skills that came through to build the success in my career. So it was really interesting. The moment that I realized that was the moment I became really comfortable with where I was at. The big thing as well, though, that I will say I think most of us at the moment, our plans have changed, and we had a conversation. Just a little bit. Just a tiny bit. So, and literally being in the speaking industry and the events industry, I mean, Friday, 2 weeks ago today, our world fell off a cliff, and we were probably the first ones to take the hit. Right. I was actually at a professional speakers conference when the world fell off a cliff. One of our most prolific keynote speakers in Australia took 117 cancellations in 2 hours. Like it imploded around us. And so there was a range of reactions to that, from distraught and deep trauma right through to, we just need to see this through. How can I serve? So it was sort of like a spectrum was provided to us of where we wanted to fit on that and how we were going to respond. And I think having a life where I went completely off plan and was lucky to come back on plan, and also having been in leadership or entrepreneurial positions with 9/11 and the GFC and things like that, is actually you need to recognize what this is for what it is. It is a moment in time, right? And it is hard and it is tough and it takes your breath away. But this is a moment in time, and your path may change, and you might be looking at it and thinking, forget the path. I can't even see 3 centimeters in front of where I'm standing, right? That's okay, right? In this moment, that is okay. What you have to let go of is the path and the rigidity of following that path. The thing is still there. The thing will be there when we come out the other side of this. What matters is that you go, okay, so what can I do in this moment? And there was some amazing advice given at this conference that I was at. And one of the things was, if it's not a decision that you would have made anyway 6 weeks ago, don't make it now. So, for example, if you want to pivot everything that you're doing to go online and be virtual, if that was part of your game plan, but you just never got around to it, or part of your game plan, you hadn't had time to do it, then that was an okay decision to make. But if you were doing it because you were fearful that if you didn't, you would lose your business, it was not the right decision to make. He also asked us to go to 12 months from now, and if the decision we're making about what we're doing with our business, we would still be comfortable in when the world is good again in 12 months, then it was okay to make it. So the pathway has absolutely changed. For some of us, the pathway is like it went down through quicksand and it's disappeared. But the thing that we love and the thing we're here to do and the thing that we actually bring value to the world with hasn't changed.
Absolutely. And I love how you say that. But before I go too far, for those of you who got maybe possibly a little lost, 3 centimeters is the same as 1.18 inches. So there you go. So there we go. We caught them all up. But what I like about what's being shared here is many of us, we all have a should do list. I should do this, but I don't have time. And what you're saying is now is the time to do those things that you should have already done. And if you're willing to admit that, you know what, there are some things I should have done already that I just didn't. And now is the perfect time to do them, which I think is perfect. Because there are probably people who are like, I should speak. I should take that time. I should do that. But I haven't done it yet. Before we go there, though, we have to talk about what I like to call the superhero moment. Because a lot of your experience previously, you were connected to a larger organization that you necessarily did not own and or control. And all of a sudden, something happened somewhere. Like, what was that spider that bit you that said, you know what? I got something. I can offer it to people too.
Yeah.
That way.
I guess I had always inherently been good at messaging and had used speaking to build every both career and business that I've been involved in. And I had also used, because of the way I'd been mentored, I'd also always used storytelling for sales and trained consultants to sell that way and that sort of stuff. So I knew that it was part of what I could do, but what started happening, I was a CEO of a traffic control company. So the stop-go people on the highways, the big trucks. And so we worked on all the major motorways and highways in our state. And we had a change of government, which meant that most of our contracts disappeared. So this is not the first time I've been in a business where things have fallen off the edge.
Path changed again. Got
it. So part of that process was I had to make the organisation lean and able to run under a general manager, and in that process made myself a CEO redundant. So I had a 3-month transition. So the first month was the general manager-elect would shadow me. The second month I would follow him, and then the third month I just had to be available on the phone if there was an issue. So it was a really well-structured transition. So in that 3 months, I was in my early 40s. My children were basically independent. I was single, and I was like, what am I going to do next? Like, what am I going to do when I grow up? It was the first it was the first time that I'd actually taken a breath and asked myself that question. And so I just decided I was going to take it as a blank slate, and I went to every single event I could find in a 50-kilometre radius for 3 months. I made no judgments about the rooms. It was from free to $500, but I just, whatever event I could find that I could buy a ticket to or turn up for free, I went to. Now, in a lot of those rooms, I learned that I never wanted to be back in that room. But I started to get really quite annoyed that no matter how much I paid for the event, I felt like there were no good speakers in the world. And I was like, what? Like, I just got really annoyed. And I had done a lot of speaker training early in my career. So speaking, communications, negotiation, mediation, anything to do with the written word, the spoken word. And I just started to get really, really annoyed about the fact that even if I paid substantial money for an event, the speaker was not honouring his audience's time. The speaker was not, I felt like the craft of speaking was lost, and I felt like they were dishonouring the time that people were giving them for them to speak from the stage. So there was a lot of sales from the stage. There was a lot of pitching from the stage. There was a lot of, and there wasn't a lot of value, and there wasn't a lot of content. There was a lot of hype, and there was a lot of me, and self-indulgence. There was little regard for what it takes to actually take an audience on a journey with you. And so I just started to get really, really annoyed. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to go and look at what's happening here, because something's obviously changed since I did my training. So I went and had a look at a range of courses. I did some of them, and I was just like, they're not getting what's important here. And I couldn't quite articulate it. So I decided I built workshops before, but more with industrial relations and workplace bullying and all that sort of stuff. So very hard stuff. And I decided that I would see if I could deconstruct how I put things together and put it into a workshop and see if that would work. And I was still playing with it and thinking, okay, here we go. Jack's off on a tangent again. And then I went to a pitch fest. So this pitch fest was the end of a 12-month program where people had spent tens of thousands of dollars on the way through. And this was supposed to be the 10 best people. So it was a process, and these were the 10 of the best in a public pitch fair, so they would open up for the finals and there would be a winner and things like that. I thought, awesome, because I love pitch. I actually love pitching, even more than straight speaking. I love a great pitch. I love being sold to. And so I thought, great. So I scooted in, and the first person came out and said, hi, my name is, and I'm from, and I'm here to talk to you about. And it was bland. Second person comes out, hi, my name. Now, I get that they had to have a formula, but there was nothing from any of them to tell me why I should do business with them. And I was furious. I was like, these people have spent a fortune, and they sound like, I can't say the word I would automatically say. They sound terrible.
Okay. Whether in Australian or English, that was bad. Got it. Totally understood.
Yeah. So I just walked out of there and I went, you know what? I'm actually going to see whether this thing will really work. So I put a pilot program together. I put just over 100 people through that workshop. And what happened in that was, because I was just doing this as something to play with until the next real opportunity came along, right? So I was filling in some time, seeing if I could do this thing. But, you know, when the next real business or the next real career move came, then I was going to do that. But what happened in that pilot program was people were actually walking out able to speak and clearly articulate a message and hold attention. And that was exciting, because what would happen was there would be a moment, no matter who it was in front of me, there would be a moment, and it's become my dopamine. There are still these moments. There's a second where people realize, and it's a very quick split second across their face, where people realize that not only have they got something to say, but there is an incredible way to say it. And once people understand and have that skill, their whole world opens up, right? If you can articulate your message, if you can articulate something of value, if you can articulate where you are now and where you need to go, if you can do those things, you can both stand out in the crowd, but you can also bring people with you. And it opens up a playing field that you've never seen before. And that's what I got addicted to. It became my dopamine, that moment in time when suddenly people in front of me realized they had something to say, they had a powerful way to say it, and they could create whatever they wanted as a result.
You know, I love the way you expressed the concept that became your dopamine. I think every entrepreneur can relate to that moment with that special thing that they bring to the world, because it's a discovery process. We're not born knowing it, but once it clicks, it's like, oh my God, that's the thing. And I had no idea that I could do that. And yet at the same time, when we're confronted with that, some of us find out that I'm so excited I can't get the words out. Don't you just understand? And now,
like, I am so good at this, and you should just fall into line and follow me blindly.
Exactly. And we're wondering, like, why don't they get it? Well, it's because that maybe you haven't quite communicated, or, as you say, take them on the journey with you. But there's a concept that I was intrigued by, the way you said it. Honoring the audience's time.
Yeah.
What's that mean? Hey guys, thanks for listening as always, and I'm glad that you continue to support with each and every download and subscription and share. One of the things that I want to ask you, though, is where are you listening to me from right now? I know some of you, maybe you're on a treadmill, maybe you're washing dishes, maybe you're walking that dog, and some of you are actually in a vehicle driving right now. One of the fun things that you can do, get some of your time back, is begin to living a car-free existence. But even then, it can be a little complicated. So one of the things that I want you to do is I want you to go over to Zipcar. Go to joinzipcar.com/CashFlowDiary. It's a way that I am able to still go get a car just for a few hours, very, very simply, so that if I have a lot of errands to run and sheets to drop off and running to the short-term rentals, or if I just want to go for a long trip up to LA and back, etc., I can rent a car for a very, very short period of time. And the cool part is I don't even have to pay for any gas. Again, go to joinzipcar.com/CashFlowDiary.
So even if you are speaking for free, which a lot of people do either to build their business or because they're just starting out in lifting their speaking skills, you have to honor the audience's time. And what I mean by that is, no matter how that person has come to be in front of you, and if you're speaking for 15 minutes, 45 minutes, or an hour and a half, you for that moment in time, they are giving you their most precious commodity. They are giving you their time. So you need to serve. And actually, when I was in the US working with some clients, they told me about a phrase from an organization, which is the privilege of the platform. And I love that. If you are actually, and the platform now is actually not just from a stage, it's things like we're doing right now. It's podcasting, YouTubing, all that sort of stuff. The stage is different now. It's varied, but it's actually, the privilege of the platform means I'm here to serve. So it is not about being self-indulgent. It is about explaining to people through story how you got to where you are and what you know to be true about the world. And that doesn't mean, so most of the ways that I build and craft messages is we only ever have 20 to 30% of our own personal story and stuff, which really shocks people. But it's the way that we bring it through. So 1 is not self-indulgent. 2 is not doing therapy from the stage. 3 is giving something of value, because the person in front of you has given you their time. So you must give them something in return. There must be an energy exchange. And how you do that is 3 things, is actually understanding how to inspire and engage through storytelling, because storytelling is actually not about you. The only reason we tell stories is to create a bridge and create belief and trust between us and the people listening. That is the purpose of storytelling. It's not about you telling stories about yourself. Storytelling is simply the fastest way we have to connect at an unconscious level with the people in front of us, and is the fastest way that we have to create belief and trust. So that's the first one. The second one is to actually give something of value. So whether that's a shift in perspective, a question to ask, a strategy to use, the first 3 steps. So you need to give them something that they can go away and use. It's like a takeaway. It's like a gift that they can go away and use, and they will then remember you. And the third thing is you actually have to, last part of honoring the audience is actually building the muscle of speaking. It is a craft. You know, it is a craft, and it is like some of the best speakers in the world will tell you after 25 and 30 years where they're doing 200 and 300 gigs a year, they are still continually investing in improving their craft. This is
Hold on. Did you say 200 gigs a year?
Yeah, some speakers are doing that.
How? Only 365 days. I don't even... I can't comprehend. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. So people who are just doing speaking, it's their business, will average, great professional speakers who are well established will average 150 to 250 gigs a year, depending on the year. We have a private Facebook group that I actually share a lot of stuff in, and we just had a boost yesterday. We had about 30 new members. And of those 30 new members, 12 of them speak 100 times or more a year in a normal world.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am having a perspective paradigm shift right now. Like, I don't even know how that is logistically possible, but okay. I believe you.
Some people have more frequent flyer miles than we will ever accumulate in our whole life.
Exactly. Like, wow. I can only imagine what that's like. But there's something that you said again at the beginning, and you've kind of mentioned it again. The stage has changed to a degree, and that was, before recent events. But even now, I would say, because of recent events, the stage is changing maybe even just faster. That rate of change has been accelerated. So for the entrepreneur that is listening, who's maybe their primary business isn't necessarily, speaking per se, but they've got something to say along the way of telling the story about their product or service, what would they do, or how do they accomplish and still get that message across?
So the stage has changed a lot, and it is varied. And even those who are conference speakers, I've got one client who's been hologrammed into multiple sites through conferences. And so, so there's a whole heap of crazy stuff going on out there. This is not the future. This is not, this is happening now. So you have so many stages now and so many platforms. So we have podcasting, we have video channels, we have, speaking actually at conferences when our world comes back to normal. But the thing is that no matter what you choose to do, and it may be that you are actually going to create your own channel or of whatever that is, and it may be that you are going to guest on other people's programs like I'm guesting on yours. But whatever it is that you do, the number one thing that people forget is that they have to be crystal clear in their message first. So what is it that you do? Don't come on, don't start creating a speaking profile where you are still giving 20 different messages. What is the core? And I talk about the through line, right? So what is the through line here? So my through line has always been language and the power of words to make a difference, no matter what I've done. So that's my through line, okay? I have another client whose through line is actually about being able to navigate whatever comes through, but she's actually an economist, right? But she uses data to make decisions on what the next best step is. So she's a navigator. It doesn't matter what you bring to her. Let her see the data and she can work out how to navigate. So her thing is navigation. So work out what it is what do you want to be famous for is number one, right? What do you actually want to be famous for is the first question. If someone said, I met Jermaine and he speaks on this and I took this away, what would that be? That's number one. The second question that most, and particularly entrepreneurs, forget to ask is, do I have the right to speak to this? Right? So what I mean by that is just because it sounds sexy, does your experience, is it your depth of experience or lived experience or expertise, does it back up what you're going to speak about? Because if you don't have the right to speak to it, if you don't have the history and the scars and the learning and the celebrations around that topic, then you don't have the right to speak to it, because your audience, so if you come off a stage or you come off a podcast show, you come off a YouTube interview and somebody responds to that and they come up to you and you've changed their life, but you don't know how to have that conversation when they ask you a question, you shouldn't do that. Yeah. Right? It is negligent in my view. And I know that's a strong word, but it is negligent. You need to speak to what you have the right to speak to.
Yeah, I will have no desire or capability of talking about medicine. At the sight of blood, it is not the thing you want from me. Even though there are lots of medical procedures I have seen and undergone, it's never pleasant, but I don't know anything about it. So I think I hear you. Yet at the same time, confronted with the reality of today's situation, some might be of an impression that she trained speakers. How on earth, why would I want to do that now?
Yeah, so now is actually, and I'm not doing this just to say, this is what we should be doing. So when it's a little bit slower, there's a couple of things that we need to do. When we've been, and this isn't just a little bit slower, this is a constantly evolving smash in the face. Let's be honest.
I like that. Wake up today. Yes, you got hit again. Yeah.
So this is, let's be honest, this is an extraordinary time that we're living in. The thing though is that when you focus on building a craft, and I'm happy to share at some point some things that you can do, when you have a skill that you want to build or a thing that you want to do, if you focus on the learning of that, it actually pulls your head out of the trauma or the drama that you're currently in. You can't actually stay stuck in trauma and drama and build a new skill at the same time. Mm-hmm. So that's number one, right? Number two is it is still important to be heard. Now, right now, how you get heard in your messaging, like most of the stuff I've been doing with my clients in the last 10 days or 12, 14 days now, has been about changing the language that they're using, right? Now, if you haven't built skills in speaking and language and messaging, you can't change your messaging to move with the times. You've lost your agility because you are just simply doing some copywriting and you are doing some messaging and you are talking to something that is scripted, that has not necessarily come from deep experience, and you haven't built the craft of messaging and language. You lose agility. Language, the mastery of language and the ability to speak gives you agility. I talk all the time about, it's all about, we talk about learning how to speak and communicate from the point of view of when things are going well. We want to build our profile. We want to build our business, especially entrepreneurs. It's actually the fastest way to build your business, become great at speaking and build profile around that. So that's in good times. But in the bad times, it's actually more critical because you need to be able to change your language fast. You need to be able to change your positioning and your messaging fast. You need to be able to articulate clearly what is going on around you, because until you articulate clearly what a problem is, you can't articulate the challenge and you can't articulate the solution. You can't explore, you can't brainstorm. If your language is restricted and the way that you speak is restricted, you can't explore alternatives. So for me, it's just as important in crisis as it's more important in crisis. And if you watch those people that are rising, those people who are stepping in or even just holding the line, they are able to speak beautifully from the heart, and that's what people are responding to right now. But if you've never taken the time to learn how to do that, you may sound raw, you may sound vulnerable, you may sound as though you actually need to be locked up in a psychiatric unit, because you haven't taken the time. And and we see it all the time, and you haven't. So if you have not ever invested in your ability to speak, and the other thing is actually understanding how to unpack your own thinking, extract what you know to be true, and how to repack that in a way that the world wants to hear it. That never disappears.
And what's interesting is that as I hear you communicating and breaking this down in ways that I have never considered, there are individuals who I think all of us have been in front of at times and goes, wow, they're good. We don't know why, but they're like, wow, they're good. And it can lend itself to believe that they were either born that way or, it just happened. But yet it's a craft. It's a skill. It's something that can be learned, which then raises the question, can anyone learn it?
So there's a couple of qualifiers on that. I started this business believing that everyone has a voice and everyone deserves to be heard. And I have shifted that to everyone has a voice and some people should shut up. Right?
All right. This is good.
So, and that's because actually, if you're still speaking from a place of ego, just stop. And we see a lot of that in social media sound bites. Yeah. So anyone can learn the skill of speaking. So I'm actually an introvert. I refused to speak till I was 29. That's the funniest part about the fact that I now train other people to speak for a living. So I refused to speak. I actually pushed back, denied. I found great strategies to get other people speaking on my behalf when I was leader of a business. I refused to speak, and I learned how to do it, right? So a lot of people will say, I'm good at it. I don't need to practice it. I'm one of those gifted natural people. And my challenge is always, that's great. They say, there's an expression in Australia, I just wing it. I don't know if you have that over there. I can just do it. I can shoot from the hip. I can speak on anything. And my challenge to those people is always, well, if you're that good naturally, well, imagine what you could do if you actually practiced it.
Right.
Imagine how powerful you would be if you actually deliberately did this thing. And so anyone can learn it. Some of the biggest block to anybody learning how to become a better speaker, or anyone starting their speaking, the biggest challenge is actually not the ability to learn it. It is not in understanding how to extract your message. It's not any of that. The biggest thing that stops people from speaking is in here. It's the internal voice, the internal words. That is what stops most people from speaking. Do I really have anything of value? Who's going to listen to me? What if they cut me down? I don't have the right to stand out. I was told to be quiet by my grade 6 teacher. There is all this internal chatter going on. So it's actually sometimes the inner language that we have to work on first. But to your question of can anyone learn to speak, I can teach just about anyone. And I've had everything through from the shy, quiet introvert who's there because her husband told her she needed to build a confidence, to, executives, to politicians, to gold medal Olympians. I work with gold medal Olympians in Australia here. I've had sexologists, I've had sex therapists, I've had, pest control guys, I've had electricians. So everyone who's come through my room walks out able to communicate much more clearly than they ever could before. So anyone can learn it.
It's funny that you say some of the things that you said, because I resisted for a while starting this show, because I remember who's going to listen. No one cares. All they're going to do is leave a horrible review. And I don't want to read that later. Yeah. So I'll, skip the process. And yeah, well, here we are, 600 plus episodes and 7 years later. And it's just, it's amazing the transformation that is possible. And through consistent practice and diligence and all of these things. Now, for those that have listened this far and they're at that point and trying to figure out, I like what she says. I need to find out more. What's going to be the best way for them to track you down and find out more what you got going on?
Okay, so the fastest way to track me down is actually through LinkedIn. So just Jacqueline Nagle, Canberra, Australia for LinkedIn. LinkedIn search. Jacqueline Nagle 1, I think, is my actual handle. And then the other way is actually there is a speakerwithyou.com website, and speakerwithyou.com/interviews is our normal workshop program for the US. Obviously, right now, the normal doesn't exist. But if you go to that and you send an inquiry, then when we release our new programming, which is a virtual delivery led by me, that will be sent to you if you actually go to that page and send an inquiry on.
Love it. And I'm excited for that personally, because again, it is something that, I've always asked myself, have I done everything I can do? And I haven't explored this. So I'm interested to do exactly that. And I'm definitely grateful that individuals like yourselves, the things that you have gone through, the decisions that you have made, now you choose to share them. You choose to share your superpower with us. So as we wind down, I've got a final question because I'm curious to hear your answer, because there are people. What's that?
I said there's a smile in your voice. I'm worried now.
Yeah. You should be. This is accurate. So because here's what I know. I know that there are individuals right now who started this podcast going, I don't know. And maybe now they're at the point of, okay, I think I can, maybe I should do this. That absolutely makes sense. And like I know, when we reach what I like to call the precipice of decision, I mean, we're looking over that cliff, and yet at the same time, in the back of our head, we have this voice. And it's a voice that's been there before. It's very familiar. And it reminds us of, well, you remember what last time you tried and that didn't, I mean, come on, you're going to do what? How are you going to impact people? Seriously? And then some people are related to that voice. So my question to you is as follows. Let's pretend that this time it's going to be different. This time they're going to follow through, and they're going to do so in the next 24 to 48 hours. Mm-hmm. What would you suggest that they do? Do what?
Commit to the decision.
Yeah.
Commit to the decision. And I would actually, so what I would do the next 24 to 48 hours is I would actually go and find your favorite speakers, 3 of them, and watch them and see what it is that you love about them. Because whatever it is that you love about them is a mirror to what you love about yourself if you were to speak.
Interesting.
So if you don't have 3 favorite speakers, Google the top 10 TED Talks of all time and choose 3 of them. And if you take notice, so don't just listen to it and be inspired and go, wow, that's amazing. Actually listen to the things that you love about it. Is it the way they tell the story? Is it the way they move? What is it about it that you love in that storytelling or that speech? Because that is a direct mirror to what will matter to you as a speaker. And it's the first of the keys that we use to start to unlock who you are as a speaker.
Interesting. I like that. And I want to see, I want to play with that definition of speaker for just a quick second. What if that speaker, if you will, happens to be, I don't know, a songwriter?
Absolutely, because it's still the same. What are the lyrics that you notice? What is it about the tempo and the pace? What is the message that you take from it? Is it clear? How are they positioning their words and their language? It's the same.
Yeah, see, I knew I was going to love your answer. I didn't know why, but that's what I was excited about. I was like, come on. So yeah, that's exactly it. And I hope that every one of you listening are catching, her passion and exactly everything that you stand for. And Jacqueline, I just want to say thank you for being willing to share your knowledge, your wisdom, and your insight here with us today at the CashFlow Diary.
It's actually been my absolute pleasure.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? That means track her down on LinkedIn. When? Now. Why? Because you know, one, you're not doing much else right now. And you've always thought about it. You've always wondered. You had hoped at one time, maybe possibly, you too could become a speaker. You could maybe start a podcast, maybe start a YouTube channel. You could find a way to influence people, help them, serve them, and show them the way using your voice. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an interesting time that we are all living in, and most importantly, it is time for action. So I say this to you, do something. It's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.